I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristin Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried, will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Teresa, thank you so much for not only joining the network with your podcast, but also coming on my show.
Hey, I am truly grateful that you have me on the show.
Well, tell our listeners the name of your podcast and a little bit about your background.
Okay, so my podcast is Just a Widow Talk, Voices of Spouse and Partner Loss. And we actually are pretty new, just kind of launched on New Year's Eve of 2021. And that was important to me because I got the idea for it, or I should say it was birthed in 2021. So it was just important to me that we kicked it off in that year. So a little bit about me. Oh gosh. I'm a trained journalist, and I was a newspaper reporter for 16 years. I still occasionally freelance. Let's see. That was around the time of 2010 when newspapers really took a hit, and I was part of a massive downsizing, and I was like, okay, I'm not good at anything else. What do I do? And so I became like a queen of reinvention, I guess, and, became an adjunct professor, worked shelving books at a library, and was a crisis aide at a domestic violence shelter. Oh, and a substitute teacher.
Oh my God.
I just did, I did all these, and I also worked for Americorps, which was amazing. It's like Peace Corps here in America. And, I just did things that I thought I wouldn't maybe have had a chance to do. And I really tried to keep my skills fresh and I really grieve journalism as it was. And, but I do feel like now with this podcast, it's such a blessing because I get to do journalism again. So currently I'm a diversity director, Diversity Student Programs Director at Emporia State University here in the heartland of Emporia, Kansas.
Wow. That's amazing. And I got to learn more. I'm going to have to look up Americorps because I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it. So I'm definitely
It's really cool. It's actually pretty cool.
Did you work for them as an employee or were you volunteering?
Yeah, that's the thing. Because it's not quite, they won't let you use the W word. It is more like service. They call it service. And so anyway, I guess to backtrack. So I was downsized in 2010. Well, in 2014, I lost my husband, Ricky Williams, after only a 2-week diagnosis of leukemia.
Oh my God.
And so that was a total, it was all but devastating for our little family. I had
Yeah.
2 teenage boys to raise. They were 13 and 16 at the time. And I was just like, okay, what do I do? And
Right.
so Americorps really did, a lot of people think that Americorps is just kind of for college students, but there's a lot of folks who are transitioning jobs or older folks. There's like the senior corps. There's just a lot of opportunities, and it doesn't pay much, but it's really cool because you can network, and they do pay. They give you a stipend. You get benefit, health benefits. You even get an education award. Like when you finish your stint, you get you can have student loans paid off. So it's just really a good thing. I learned so much. I did 2 stints. The first one was in an elementary school as a literacy tutor. And then the second one was for an urban blight program. And this was all in Michigan. I've just been in Kansas for about the past 3 years, but I've been in Michigan for about 20 years. So. And I'm not missing the snow over there right now.
Oh, I know. Listeners, she and I have been playing like podcast tag because she had stuff she had to do, and then I had to cancel twice because of the 2 snowstorms.
Yeah.
And I can't do shows on the mountain because it's a hamster running our internet.
Oh my God.
It's been interesting, but tell me about, obviously your topic for your podcast, is about grief. So what, because this is so recent. I didn't even realize it was so recent that you launched. So,
yeah.
So what was the impetus for you to, I know the journalism part, but to delve into this that was so devastating? I know I lost my dad, and my mom was just absolutely,
I'm sorry,
love of her life, and just devastated, and made some really scary, I want to get into this too, but made some really scary decisions out of that grief that we are recovering from now.
Yes.
So,
which isn't unusual,
Yeah. In fact, that would be a good thing to talk about later in the show. But for now, tell me about, your journey with wanting to do this particular topic as a podcast.
Well, I would be remiss in saying that these past 7 years, grief is a bully. That's how I choose to see. And it has kicked my arse all over the place. And it has dragged me through the mud. I really say I laugh, but it's true. I'm kind of the poster child for what not to do with grief, because I really made some poor choices, some self-sabotaging things. And I say all that to say not that, oh, woe is me, the victim, but really to say that I feel like I am the woman for this, that I want to be, I want to amplify the voices of grievers, especially spouse and partner loss, because I read somewhere that spouse, parent, and child loss are among 3 of the most traumatic things that a person can experience. And, I think that there's a lot of people out there who say boneheaded things to grievers.
Oh my God.
But there's also people who truly care, and they want to help us and understand us. And I thought, what better way than to interview grievers? And that's what I've done. Every show is a different person, and they get to share their stories. And I'm so honored and humbled that they share with me, because some of these people are within my circles, but some are total strangers that I just kind of reached out to and said, hey, I'm doing this podcast, and if you would be willing. And my inbox has just been like popcorn.
I bet.
All these people. And that really shows me that we need more safe spaces for grievers. And so anyway, so like I said, 7 years, and my 7th year was special. This past year was really special because I really got some light bulb moments. And one of those moments was, I attend a support group in Michigan, still even virtually. And I'm so grateful for it. And I thought, you know what, when I moved to Kansas, I'm going to find a group, and I really I couldn't find where I fit. And so I decided to start my own. So in
Good for
October,
you. Why does that not surprise me at all? Just in the little amount of time I've known you, I'm like, yep, not a surprise at all.
yeah, and I'm also getting my second master's. It's a master's in social work. And I thought, you know what, when I finish that, I'll start it. But I had a couple of griever friends who were like, no, your husband's death is your credential. Start the damn thing. So, so I started the virtual support group, and it's Friday nights. And it's Friday nights because, weekends are kind of hard. And Friday nights were always really rough for me. And I thought, you know what, let's just do it. And it's a very intimate group. And I call us the goof troop because we cry, we laugh. We're family. We've got people from all over. Even a guy from the UK joins us, and it's just a blessing to do that. And so out of that group and out of my grief, Just a Widow Talk was born. And I just kind of said, I got to do this. I don't know much about podcasts, but I know people and I know journalism and I know how to ask questions, and I know grief. And so let's do this. So I'm just so excited. It's only been a little while, a couple months, but just the feedback and the responses I've gotten has been so positive. And I'm so grateful for you and Mental Health News Radio Network for, having my show, because I just feel like if this is just the beginning, like what is around the bend?
And we just clicked like the first call. And I'm forever grateful to Jan for.
Oh, and she's wonderful. Yes, Jan Canty. I just had her podcast where I interviewed her was just released last week, and she's actually coming this Friday to my support group.
Yeah, my mom might join it if
I would love that.
Really? Okay,
yes.
Listeners, you heard it here first. Yeah, my mom she had a grief group. But she needs a good one. Let me ask you this, from your experience. So, because I have noticed this and I've been doing my own deep dive into it, but as you said, some of the worst, the worst kind of trauma can be from, like you said, a child or a spouse, partner. And a lot of people out there prey on widowers.
Oh, yes. Widows and widowers, yes.
Yeah, widows and widowers, exactly. I wasn't sure if widower covered the whole thing, but yes, widowers and widows, and they, especially if they've been left some money. And I've watched this unfortunately go on, and within my own family. And what's sad is you're already grieving, and then someone comes in and does the run end on you, and you don't want to believe that it's true. And then you have to grieve again.
Yes. I'm so glad that I'm not happy for the situation that you have observed, but I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that's one thing we do talk about on the show as well as in our group is there's a lot of people out there who they really don't care that your whole world has come caving in, and that the
love of your life died.
Exactly. And that you're not in quite your right mind. And in fact, they look for opportunities like that. And I've been on the end of that as far as like dating. And there have been men who, bless their hearts, they're just like, you know what, honey, you're not ready, and there have been others that have been like, hey, I mean, hey, if you're game, I'm game, that kind of thing. And in fact, and I'm writing about this, I'm writing a book about this, about how it's called, I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say there was a pastor, and my husband, the week he died, he called me, and, this is somebody I knew, and I was not in my right mind. And, by the end of the conversation, he was like, I know what you need.
Oh,
and, that, and it's real. It's so real, because there are many widows and widowers, and this is a whole other conversation, but society doesn't want to see us having intimate needs. And if you have particularly had a healthy life, sex life, or intimate life, then that is a very hard transition, or difficult transition to, what do you do now? And so there are, I feel like society doesn't really want to hear about that. It's like taboo. Like, how could you possibly want to be with somebody else, or, oh, you're such a bad person because your husband or wife, passed away. And you can never please everybody. Like, if you're sitting at home, people will talk about you because you're sitting at home and you're not moving it forward and you're not getting out there. And then when you get out there, they're like, oh, look at them, their husband or wife just died and they're out, partying, or man. So you can't win. You can't
you're
win.
Screwed any way that you go. I know. And it's interesting because, you're at such a vulnerable, like there's no,
exactly.
Yeah, you're a sitting duck for somebody to come in and like convince you that you, I mean, I remember hearing conversations about, well, you just weren't living your truth. And you were like watching, someone I love get managed down and managed down and managed down to the point where any crumb of intimacy, meanwhile, this person could go on The Price is Right with all the prizes and the money and everything that has been spent on them out of what was left to this, and it's just like, oh boy, now we got to wind our way, which we will, but I always think, what?
And it's almost like in the marriage or in the relationship, we were cocooned, I mean, we really didn't have to think about what is it like to date, or getting to know somebody all over again, because we had history, we shared history and life and with our partners, and to start all over again, it can be daunting. And then let me just say, the online dating world is a whole other animal. And that's some shark infested waters to navigate. Not saying it's impossible, because I've met some really great friends. But it is just a whole new world. And I was one of those, I would sit down with my boys and I was like, hey, mama isn't perfect. And I'm sorry, I'm not the kind to just kind of sit around. I mean, I want to live life to the fullest. And I know daddy would have wanted that. And, but I tried to be really respectful and not bring, many men around, because it's different than divorce, it is, especially when you've got young people in the house. It's just, for me, I just really wanted to be respectful of them, but I still, dated and things. And I definitely bumped my head with that. And, wish I would have waited a little while, but, you learn, you live and learn. And I don't believe in regrets, but I really, I just want to get the stories out of loss and moving forward, trying to move forward. And there's so many amazing stories, everybody's got a story. And I just love that I can offer what I believe is a safe space for folks to talk and to kind of get their loved one and their story out in the universe for others to hear.
I think that's such a big piece too, is being able to share how wonderful, if it was a wonderful marriage or relationship, like a safe place to be able to say, because I know with my parents, a lot of times, they didn't really talk about how great the relationship was, because people would be like, "Ugh, I'm going to throw up," because or you're so lucky, or I mean, it was one of those, I mean,
Yes, yes.
and it's like eh, a place where she can go really talk about that, and I do that, about talking about him too. This is a man who I he was my stepfather. I asked him if he would adopt me when I was 38,
Oh, wow.
and he did.
Wow.
We
Oh
went
my
through a whole
goodness.
legal thing. We made the judge cry that was sitting in, because he's in a family court judge. He's like, "This is all year it's been horrible, and you guys just made my whole," the kind of cases that he's dealing
Wow.
with every day. And here we come, and I took his last name, and I mean, you don't
That's beautiful.
you don't rebound from a death like that in just a
Right.
few years. It takes
Exactly.
its time. And how have you talked to people about, there's so many things. People are trying to be nice, and people can only come to you from their perspective of things. But I have had people be so dismissive.
Yes, yes.
And I just look at them and I'm like, really? This is where you're, and being in mental health, I try not to judge, even though, hello, I'm human. I do it like anybody else. But then I go, oh, now I'm judging the people who are judging. What the hell does that make me? But it's,
I like to think of it this way. People, at the very foundation, people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And it doesn't, I guess, excuse it, but it helps me to be able to live with it a little better when folks say things that are casual or dismissive.
Right.
And I truly believe that when our loved ones pass, a lot of times people are all in our faces, "We're so sorry, we're here for you, anything you need." And they are for about 2 weeks. um, but
Right.
then, life does have to go on. But I have heard from many grievers who say, I need to be checked on, or
Yeah.
where is everybody? And so there's that. If I could offer up, if anybody out there knows somebody who has lost a spouse or partner, just be mindful. And even if you don't know what to say that. I don't know what you're going through, but I want to be here for you. Or can I just maybe come sit with you? Or do you want to take a walk? Things like that. Another thing is couples, and it's not just my experience. Again, I've learned this from years of being in different support groups and then running my own and just knowing other grievers. But our couple friends tend to drop off. And also some of us can get snarky and say, especially our friends who are married, they can kind of look at us like, "Oh, don't come around my husband." Well, honey, I don't want your husband.
Oh, geez.
And my theory is we are a reminder of what they don't want to go through.
Oh my God.
It's heavy. It's sad. It is, and as much as they love us, they still are like kind of clinging tighter to one another and saying,
Right.
let's not call them, or let's not hang out with them. And I'm not saying that's everybody's case, not at all, but there are a great many who have shared that. And it's like, you really just kind of learn who your real friends are, or who your real support system is.
Right.
And I honestly, I don't really think people do this intentionally. I think it's just kind of how life evolves, and how, and some of us, we appreciate being invited, but we may not necessarily come because we don't want to be a third wheel,
Right.
or what have you. But I guess I just want these varied experiences to be shared, and
Right.
and if it can inform or educate others, and just kind of give them a little peek into our lives, then hey, I'm really happy about that. And but we are a very different lot of folks, and we're an interesting lot, and I just firmly believe that the universe needs to hear from us, and needs to hear
Agreed.
our stories. I mean, I've had a young lady who her husband was deployed 3 times in dangerous situations, and came home and lived back east and had a job on the highway as one of those highway markers, and was mowed over and killed.
Oh, jeez.
And she was left with 3 babies, and just a story after story. And now she is, and her podcast is going to run soon. She's now fighting. I think she lives in Pennsylvania. She's fighting for a law for drowsy driving, because I believe she was killed while the guy was fell asleep at the wheel. And just these ordinary folk stories,
Right.
and,
That are extraordinary. Yeah.
Yes. And I just see myself as this is my time. I've paid my dues, and I've, still probably paying them. And I realized that grief is lifelong. And I also caution people not to treat grievers, the grief that grievers are experiencing, as something that has a time limit, or that you should put on a shelf. And even though there are people who have moved on and remarried, well, that doesn't mean they're not still a widow or widower. It doesn't mean that all the years that they had with their loved one are just erased. So, even people saying things like, well, you're young, you can marry again. It's like, come on.
I know. I know. It's like, I always tell people, think of it when you say something like that, because of course the person doesn't mean, they're not thinking about what they're saying. But I always say, how would you feel if one of your children died and somebody said but you have other children?
Or you can have you can have
what?
Right. Exactly. It's mindfulness, it's sensitivity. It's really just caring. And we just live in such a fast world, a fast-paced world. And we live also in a very self-centered, world, narcissistic. And, sometimes it does take a lot of effort to think about somebody else, but we're out here, and there's a whole heap of us out here. And again, my job is, I don't want to make people feel bad about how, maybe they've talked to grievers or whatever, but just really to just have an open mind about our reality, our new reality, because the person that you knew, like, say you think of somebody and you're like, they're not that person anymore. It has changed them so profoundly. And we grieve for that as well. We grieve for the life that we had with our partner. We grieve for the person that we were.
Yes.
So, and it's all, everything's new, everything's changed. And so, yeah, we need our support and our friends and our family more than ever. Even if it's been a couple of years or what have you, because I'm a firm believer that the grief evolves. It looks different for me now than it did year one. It's not that it's not still. Yesterday, I was very weepy, because doing this stuff is really kind of churning up some things, and it's helping me process. Because for a long time, I stuffed it. I just was like, I don't have time to grieve. I got to raise these kids. I got to pay my mortgage, that kind of thing. I can't afford, I think it was just this rationale. I was like, I can't afford to sit up and be in a puddle and crying. I mean, my boys are depending on me. I'm all they have. And so, but the thing with grief is, my therapist told me, as I was hurrying her along my first month, I was like, yeah, let's get this done. And and she was like, Teresa, you need to deal with this because it's almost like a fish bobber. You push it down and it's
Yeah.
going to come up, and it may come up during times that you don't want it to come up if you don't deal with it. And sure as I'm sitting here, yep, she was right. And so we have to go through it. We have to, and I just wouldn't trade it, because I've learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought possible. And I just want to like leave a legacy for my kids, and I want to make sure that Ricky, my husband, is honored and remembered, you know, in my own way. And so so this podcast is part of that, and I'm just so excited. I'm just so excited to do it.
Now is the time. I mean,
Yes.
there's been so many deaths, so many
Yes,
families
yes.
impacted by this pandemic.
Exactly.
There can't be enough places to talk about grief right now. I
Yes.
mean,
COVID widows, there's
yep,
military widows and widowers, and, you
yep.
know, there's all kinds, athletics, you know, I really see this as, we're going to have a long relationship, Kristin.
Yeah.
Because it's everywhere. It affects everybody, you know,
Absolutely.
it
And
affects everybody.
I think about this too, what you said about, you know, you're kind of in a bubble, you know, when you're married. And it's funny
Yes.
because like you can watch if it's a really good partnership, they lift each other up, right? And of course, no
Yes.
relationship's perfect, but you do on the one hand. So one scale is you're being lifted up and you're shining in the best way possible. But then on the other side of that scale is another one that is that you're kind of in a protected place. You are
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
naive.
Yes.
You don't know how strong you are because you're not doing this on your own. You've got someone, so you've got the support of being a unit,
Yes.
you know, but
And
then
that's
that
so
also
great.
makes you in that protected bubble, and then you lose that person. You're like, oh shit, I
Exactly.
have to
What do
now.
I do now?
Yeah, talk about
Because
cracking
like you
you
said, in a
open.
lot of marriages, it's like we have assigned roles, and, you
Yep.
know, he might take care of this, that, and the other, and you take care of that, and the other. And then when that person is gone, it's like, oh, wait, you know, I got to learn how to do these things. And you already feel out of sorts and vulnerable, and then wait, I got to learn how to change the oil in my car. What? You know,
Yeah.
just different things, or doing, you know, lawn yard work, or how to
Right.
maintain the snowblower, or what have you. You know, or the car
Or the
getting
toilet has
yes.
flooded and who do I even call? What? Yeah.
Yes, you know, and then I'm so fortunate that I've had several men to interview. I love hearing, you know, the men's side, the men's point of view, and them saying, like, well, she handled everything in the house, you know, she took care of everything, and I didn't know how to do anything as far as the bills or the cooking or, you know, nurturing the kids. I've had a couple of guys say, I, you know, had to really learn how to be nurturing, you know, and
Mhm.
it's just beautiful, you know, when you hear um, the roles, and how do you move forward from there?
How have
So,
you grown? Like I mean, we all
yes,
come here to have this human experience and because we're here to learn more about ourselves and heal wounds and all that good stuff. And so talk about getting a freaking crash course and learning about yourself
exactly.
and growing and you know the pain of a loved one that's
Yes.
gone. Yeah.
And speaking of learning, you know, I can't emphasize enough how I'm so grateful that I had the mind to go back to school and
Yeah.
studying social work right now. And just there's so many, you know, it's about mental health, and I want to be able to help specifically grievers, and because there's so many aspects. I mean, I was a mom of teenage boys, so I want to be able to help families, and then, you know, again, other spouse and partner loss, and So it's just really great. And I actually, when I got into social work, again, I'm a diversity director. Well, 2020 was an awful year. And there was just so much, with the civil unrest and with racism and all of that. And I kind of really thought I'm going to do social work so I can help other diversity professionals because we're on the edge.
Right.
But now I really want to put the emphasis on grief, and grief work because
it's universal, isn't it?
And it impacts everybody in some way, So I really feel blessed to be doing that.
What religion, what sex, what political side you're on, grief is grief.
And it really unites us.
Yes.
I'm not saying support groups are for everybody, but it has really been helpful for me. And there are people in our groups that I just know I wouldn't have known before, but it's almost like the grief thread that binds us, and these are, folks who from all walks of life, rural and urban and different races and different, but we all have that in common. And that's a space where I would just encourage anybody to try a grief support group. And if that one doesn't work, don't say you're done with them. Try another one because it's just something about being in a community of folks who they just get it.
Yeah.
You don't have to explain, yourself. They get it. And that's worth gold to me. It's almost like my AA. I just know now that I'm going to it keeps me, I feel like it helps keep me balanced, in my faith. And, I don't know. You draw your strength from wherever you can,
Right, exactly. Well, I'm so glad you're doing it. I'm so glad you're bringing it to the network. Tell our listeners again, what the name of the show is, and tell them.
Sure. Yeah. Just a widow talk, voices of partner and spouse loss. And I'm the host, Teresa Taylor-Williams, and I'm just so excited and grateful for the opportunity and look forward to folks listening in.
Fantastic. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Mental Health News Radio.
Thank you.
But will you ride the low, low, lows with me? Will you ride the low, low, lows with me?
One thing you can always count on at Mental Health News Radio Network and my show is that there will always be dogs around. Why? They are natural healers, excellent for your mental health. The original therapy dog Miles has something to say in just a moment. For now, please check out all of our amazing shows at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com and all your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm Kristin Sonanta Walker, and thank you for listening.
And I can ride the low, low, lows with me. I can ride the low, low, lows with me. Till my vision clears up perfectly. I can ride the low, low, lows with me.
Good boy. Oh, that was awesome.